All right, guys, today we're going to talk about everybody's favorite closing costs.
You better get fired up.
All right, so today I got the amazing Lissette Hurtado. Lissette, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Joe?
I'm amazing. I appreciate you asking. Today we're going to go over closing costs. It's a question we get asked about quite often. And Lissette, I'm going to let you kick it off. Explain to me a little bit about, maybe the bigger picture. I'll get a little bit more detail, but bigger picture, what are closing costs?
That's great, Joe. Yeah, and it's really important to understand specifically for first-time home buyers, what does that consist? Because a lot of times buyers think in mind, okay, closing costs, that's my down payment. So that's just one portion of the closing costs. If you are either VA, which could be 0% down, FHA, 3.5% down, first-time home buyer. If you're going to go the conventional route, we have conventional products out there that are as low as 5%, maybe 3% if you are a first-time home buyer, haven't owned a home in the last 36 months. And some people like to get a little bit more down, 20% down on the loan. So that's one portion of what you're going to have to come with at the end of the transaction at closing. The other portion is the cost of that transaction. So fees that are associated maybe with your lender fees. You might have appraisal fees, title search fees. Depending on the community you buy, you're going to have associated fees with that too. So then it's hard to say exactly the percentage of how much you're going to have to come off without knowing the type of property that you're purchasing. But there are other fees associated with that are closing. Those are your closing costs.
Beautiful, beautiful. And just, an overarching number, an average price here in Port St. Lucie, I'd say closing costs are going to be right around that 3.75% range. Could they be 4 or even a little bit more? Sure, they could. Could they be as low as 3? Sure, they could. But they're going to be right in that realm, right? Depending upon who you're working with, everything else. There's no specific set number. And the reason that is if you're in an HOA, that HOA might have fees that if you're not in an HOA, you're not going to be charged. Or if you're in one area, the taxes might be higher than another area. And, we'll talk a little bit about prorations and everything. But when you prorate all that, it's going to be a little bit more. You could look at house A, that's, whatever price it is, and house B is exactly the same price, but you're going to need more out of pocket on house B because you're prorating the insurance, and the insurance is going to be higher because this home doesn't have impact glass and windows, and it's got a shingled roof, and this one's got a metal roof, and it's got full impact glass and doors, right? So you got a lot of different things included, which is why the numbers can change drastically. You've also got differences in numbers when it comes to lenders, when it comes to realtors, when it comes to title closing companies. So all of those numbers are different depending upon who you're working with, right? So I'm going to go through a simple statement here. It's not going to have every single closing cost that's involved, but I want to show you some of the different closing costs involved. And I'll tell you too, some of these closing costs are 100% attributable to the buyer. Some are 100% attributable to the seller, and some are negotiable. And that's actually, I want to say page 3, but it's somewhere in the purchase agreement that you're filling out, right? In that offer, there's going to be a portion that says, these are the buyer's closing costs. These are the seller's closing costs. And if you want that changed in any way, or you're trying to negotiate that, you have to actually write in that you expect the seller to cover certain closing costs, or the buyer's going to pay this portion of the seller's closing costs, or, you're negotiating who's going to pay title. All these different things are negotiated. And if they're not negotiated, they're discussed specifically in the offer. So let's start going down a list of some of these different fees that you're going to have, right? Closing costs. Number 1 is prorations. So a lot of times, here's some examples of prorations. Taxes is probably the easiest one, right? If Lissette is going to purchase my home and I've already paid taxes for the full year, she's going to have to pay me a prorated amount back, right? So let's just, for easy numbers, say that I'm paying $36.50 a year in taxes. That's $10 a day. Well, if she buys it with 100 days remaining in the year, I'm owed back 100 days of my taxes times $10. That's $1,000. So I'm going to get a $1,000 credit. She's going to pay $1,000 to cover the portion of taxes I already paid. If taxes have not been paid, then it's going to be the other way around, right? I'm going to be paying as the seller because I already lived there a portion of the time. She hasn't, she'll get the credit. So that's how prorations work. You get prorations on your HOA fees. You get prorations on insurance. You can get it on your taxes. There are a lot of different things you're going to get prorations on, but that's what a proration is, right? Points. You might want to pay your rate down. So if you've got a 6.5% rate that's offered to you and you're like, I want 5 3/4, You can get it in most situations, but you've got to pay for it. And this is why they'll do it, right? The lender's looking at what is the average amount of time a person's going to spend in a home? How much money at the current rate are we going to make off of them? And if they want a lower rate, how much are we losing? And if we just charge them that number up front, what would that number be? What would it look like? Because it really doesn't matter to us as the lending company how much we get. We just want to make sure we get that amount of money. So you'll get what's called a break-even point from the lender, and they'll say, hey, if you live there for whatever it is, 4 years and 3 months, that's the break-even point. So if you live there less than that, it will not make sense for you to buy down your rate. If you live there for more than that, it would make financial sense for you to buy down your rate. And now you just decide, do I think I will or won't? Do I need the rate? Whatever it is. And you can choose to do it, right? But that's buying down your rate by paying points. A processing fee. So your lender's going to have somebody called a processor who is going to process the loan, right? So we've got transaction coordinators as realtors that we're paying to take care of our transactions, the admin side, the paperwork side. Guess what? Your lender has that same thing, right? So they're going to charge you a processing fee a lot of times to cover that person. You've got an underwriting fee. Again, not every lender has all of these different fees. That's why it's super important to ask for fees up front from your lenders. Some lenders are going to charge this much. Some lenders are going to charge this much. Some lenders are going to show you what's called the origination fee, and it's going to be this much. But if you look at all the other fees combined, you're going to be like, holy smokes, as a single fee, yeah, you're cheaper. But when you add up all your lending fees, you're more expensive than this other lender. So you want to make sure you get all of their fees on day one if you're shopping lenders. And my gosh, I always recommend shopping lenders if you don't have, even if you do have a good relationship with somebody, right? Make sure you're getting your value. I'm not saying don't pay somebody more, but make sure if you're paying somebody more, A, you're aware of it, and B, they're worth it. They're offering you some sort of value and service, knowledge, loan products, something that's going to make up for it. Otherwise, you're just blowing your money, right? Appraisal fee. You got to pay for that appraisal, right? The buyer typically pays for the appraisal, and the lenders, some lenders will cover it, and then they'll charge you at closing, which means they risk. What if it falls apart? Some are going to charge you up front because they don't want to take that risk, which means out of pocket, you're going to pay that, right? Here is an example. It's $585. I've seen them anywhere in the 5 to maybe 800 range. It really depends on a lot of different factors, though. How many appraisers do we have in that area? How far out is it from, like, Okeechobee might cost a little bit more than Port St. Lucie because it's a little bit of a jaunt out there, right? So a lot of different factors. You can even do an expedite fee. So if you're trying to do a quick closing and you didn't get through the inspection negotiation a little bit later in the game, you can pay an expedite fee and they'll get out there a little bit quicker. But of course, it's going to cost you a little bit more money. You've got a credit report fee. This one was $37. That's pretty normal. Flood cert, $8. Tax cert, $85. Prepaid interest, that's going to be loan specific, so I won't get into that too much detail. Homeowners insurance premium. So this is, do you want a homeowners insurance and premium, right? And if you have a mortgage involved, you're going to have that, but that's going to cover you on a lot of different things, right? So you're going to have that. Your title settlement fee, that's you paying the title company. What's a title company do? So I'm going to help you find the home or sell your home. And then once we actually get it under contract, you've got a inspector involved who's going to inspect the home. You've got an appraiser who's going to tell you an unbiased value of the property. You've got the surveyor who's going to come out and actually look at what are you purchasing here. You've got the lender who's giving you the money. And then you've got the title company who's got to work with all of these different people involved. The buyer, the seller, everybody I just mentioned, and they got to pull it all together so that at closing, you, the buyer, and or you, the seller, know all your costs, you know exactly what's involved, and they pull all the documents from everybody, the fees from everybody, and they make it happen, right? That's the person at closing that you're going to be sitting down and signing with. So they've got a fee for their services, right? Now you've got owner's title insurance and you've got lender's title insurance. So one of these covers the owner, the new buyer, and one of them covers the lender if you've got a lender involved. If you don't have a lender involved, you don't have this fee. This insurance is more expensive on the owner title policy than it is on the lender title policy, but you're going to want both, right? And again, if you've got a loan involved, you have to have that lender's title insurance policy. Lender's title endorsements is another one. Your title search fee. So they've got to do work. Title has to do work to actually go and do some research on this property. And you want them to do that because there might be a lien against the property or some sort of encumbrance or easement or whatever it is. You're paying them money to do the detective work to see, what am I buying? Am I buying a nice, clean, free and clear property, or does my property have some sort of issues with it? That doesn't mean if it's got issues, you can't still buy it, but maybe you don't want to buy it, or maybe you want to negotiate or whatever. That fee is what's paying them to do the work so that you know exactly what you're getting, right? We've got a lien search fee that's a very similar thing. File storage fee is just, hey, a lot of these companies now are going to store your documents for 5, 7, 10 years, whatever it is. They're going to pay you a fee to cover them holding it. Right here, it's $15. It's nothing. Absolutely, you want that. So if you're one of those people who loses documents and then all of a sudden you need a HELOC 5 years down the road and you don't have your paperwork and you need it, you can call your title company, and for that $15, they've stored it for you. They'll have it for you, right? A survey. So you've got your survey fee. You've got your e-recording fee. You've got your commissions, right? You've got recording fees. That's to record your documents. After all these documents have been done and filled out with title, you've got to get them recorded at the courthouse, at the county, to make sure that when the next person goes in to do their lien search and their title search, they can find your property and they can find all those documents, right? So you're paying money to get those recorded there. You've got your deed tax, right? You got to pay tax, and that's to the state of Florida. You've got your mortgage intangible tax, again to Florida. Your mortgage tax, again to Florida. They're getting their money. And then you've got, if you've got a potential transaction fee involved. And then the last thing I'm going to mention is your mortgage insurance premium, right? So if you don't put down, and it's loan specific, so ask your lender, but if you don't put enough down, you're going to have a mortgage. And sometimes I see it called MIP, MPI, or PMI, I'm sorry, but it's going to be insurance covering the fact that you are more of a risk because you didn't put as much down, right? So it's usually 20%. If you put 20% down, hey, we're not going to charge you this PMI or MIP because you're less of a risk to us. If you don't pay your monthly payment, we can foreclose on you, get the property, and we've got 20% equity built in. So even if the market drops 5, 8, 10%, we've still got enough equity. We can sell it and get our money back, and even more, right? So your risk is very low. But if you're putting down 3, 3.5, 5%, now the risk is a little bit higher. To make up for that risk, knowing that a certain small percentage is going to go into foreclosure, they're going to charge all of those people that additional, they call it insurance, to cover those losses, right? But that's why they're going to do it. So there are a lot of the costs involved with closing costs. But again, you're probably thinking, holy smokes, that's overwhelming. It is. Don't worry about it. Really, what you want to know is two things. Number one, that total cost is probably going to be around 3.5 to 4%. That's a conservative figure. The lower your prices, the higher it goes, because some of these fees are flat fees. Some of them are percentages. So on a smaller number, those flat fees are going to be a bigger percentage. If you get $1 million home, maybe you're looking at 2.75, 3% on closing costs. That's assuming you've got funding, right? But if you're in that lower range, you might be at 4.5%, somewhere around there. So that's important to know. Second thing that's important to know is if you want the specifics on your numbers, you need to ask your realtor, what are you charging me? You need to ask your title company, what are you charging me? And you need to ask your lender, what are you charging me? All of those are going to get you the numbers, right? Every listing appointment I've ever gone on, the seller knows exactly what they're going to pay me in commission before they say yes or no to me. When you meet with a lender, I hope you're shopping them and you're asking for their costs. And again, don't just ask for the number that they traditionally give you, which is the origination fee. Ask for all their costs, because some of these guys will mask their costs by lowering their origination, increasing the rest of them. And then when you ask for the origination, or they choose to tell you only the origination, you're shopping a portion of the fees, not all the fees, right? And with title, you don't know who you're going to close with until you get that offer accepted, right? It's a negotiable term. So whoever pays for it gets to pick where it goes. Well, if my client is not paying for it before we agree to it, I'm always going to reach out to that title company and say, hey, can you shoot me a list of all your fees? I want to see that they're roughly what a normal title company costs. I'll tell you, a lot of times, I take that back. Sometimes I've seen title companies that will charge what I consider to be a heck of a lot more than what normal title companies charge, especially if they've got an attorney involved. If there's an attorney, I really see inflated fees a lot more often. So I really think it's important to understand that rough percentage and just kind of understand those expectations. And then also, if you're tight on budget, you've got to ask all the players involved, hey, I need to see your numbers, right? And if you've got a good, hard-working agent, they can do that work for you, man. Say, hey, can you call title? Can you call my lender? Get all these numbers together and give me a rough estimate. You should be able to do that within 24 hours, and now you can make a good, educated decision. Lissette, what did I miss?
The only thing I could think of, because that was amazing, full of detail there. If you're buying in a community, you might have capital contribution fees associated with that.
Yeah.
So if some HOAs are low, maybe they're asking for 2 or 3 months upfront of HOA fees. Some are going to be quite a bit more. Some communities require $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 buy-in. So depending on the community, you're going to have fees with that, fees with the application also. And some of those fees you're going to pay upfront, just like your inspection. And some of those fees will be at closing, adding to your overall closing costs. So again, I agree with Joe. Best thing to do is, if you're thinking of putting an offer on a property, get with your agent and have them get with your lender and your title company and try to get these numbers. Now, mind you, a lot of these times these numbers are estimated, but they're as close as possible as we can get to the actual number. So there's no surprises at the closing table.
Guys, I appreciate you joining me. If you've got any questions, comments, anything like that after, please put them down. We watch these all the time, so it doesn't matter if this video is a year or two old. We'll still see them. We'll still get back to you. If you are looking at purchasing or selling a home and you want to see specific numbers for closing costs on your home, again, whether it's a purchase or a sale, reach out to us, and within 24 hours, as long as we've got your email or a Facebook DM, whatever it is, we can get you back that estimate in writing, so you've got a really good understanding of what you're going to pay. Lissette, I appreciate you coming in and educating us. Thank you very much. Guys, thanks for joining us. Have an absolutely phenomenal rest of your week. Take care.
Have a good one, guys.